If you think you've seen it all inside America's toughest prisons, think again. Hit that subscribe button because what happens inside these walls will make you question what punishment really means. They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies, ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in the United States. From the outside, it looks like a fortress carved out of the Colorado desert, endless concrete, barbed wire, and silence. Inside, it's home to the most dangerous men alive. But what most people don't see is what life inside really tastes like. Food, it sounds simple. But in here, food is power, control, and survival. Every tray, every portion, every crumb tells a story. At ADX, even eating is an act of discipline, not pleasure. The day starts at 5 a.m. when the steel doors open just wide enough for a breakfast tray to slide through. There's no cafeteria, no lines, no chatter. Meals are served inside the cells, one inmate at a time. Each tray is built to be safe. No utensils that can be turned into weapons, no hard containers that can be used to store contraband. Just a bland mixture of oatmeal, powdered milk, and sometimes, if they're lucky, a small piece of fruit. For most inmates, that's all they'll taste for the next 23 hours. They eat alone, staring at the concrete wall, the echo of their own breath louder than the sound of chewing. The isolation is deliberate. The Bureau of Prisons calls it administrative control. But inmates call it something else: the box. Lunch comes at noon and it's rarely hot. Packaged sandwiches, beans, maybe rice. Everything measured to the calorie. No seasoning, no flavor. The meals are designed for efficiency, not enjoyment. They keep you alive but barely. For many, it's the monotony that eats away first. The taste of nothing, the repetition, the sense that time itself has no flavor anymore. But food inside ADX isn't just about survival. It's a form of communication. The guards know it. The inmates know it. Refusing to eat can be a protest. Saving bread from breakfast can be a message. And for those who've spent years in solitary, these small acts become their only form of resistance. Once, an inmate reportedly refused food for 28 days straight. Not for religion, not for hunger strike publicity, but as a way to regain control in a place where every move is monitored. Each missed meal was a statement. You can cage my body, but you can't control my will. There are rumors, stories whispered between the walls, about inmates trading snacks through the food slots. Tiny bribes for loyalty. A pack of crackers can buy silence. A piece of fruit can buy protection. In the economy of ADX, food is currency. Then there's the other side, the punishment meals. The loaf. A dense, flavorless brick made from blended vegetables, bread, and beans, baked into one unrecognizable block. It's what you get when you break the rules, fight, threaten, or refuse orders. The loaf isn't about feeding. It's about discipline. Inmates describe it as chewing on concrete. Medical staff monitor those who can't handle it. Stomach cramps, dehydration, weakness. It doesn't take long before some beg for regular meals again. Others adapt, breaking the loaf apart, softening it with water, pretending it's bread. Survival in ADX means turning punishment into routine. For those on restricted diets, religious or medical, there's another layer of struggle. Requests for special meals are processed slowly, and sometimes by the time approval comes, the inmate's health has already suffered. In a place designed to isolate, even a delay in a diet plan can feel like another form of control. Still, for all its strictness, the food system at ADX is engineered with precision. Nothing enters without inspection. Every ingredient is counted. Every tray logged. Cameras record each delivery, ensuring there's no tampering or exchange. Even the kitchen staff, carefully selected low-risk inmates from other units, operate under constant supervision, never allowed near knives or unsupervised ingredients. Yet mistakes happen. A spoon goes missing. A tray doesn't match its record. In a place where security is absolute, even the smallest error becomes an investigation. One former officer once said, "In ADX, food is the only thing inmates can still look forward to, and the only thing we can take away." It's a haunting truth. Here, food isn't comfort, it's control. The difference between a hot meal and the punishment loaf can depend on a single word, a single act of defiance. But something changed recently, something subtle. The new batch of trays began tasting different. Inmates started noticing. Some said it was just the supplier. Others whispered it was something else, a quiet experiment. No proof, no paper trail, but the murmurs grew louder through the vents. And then one morning, an inmate in cell B214 refused his breakfast tray, not out of protest but out of fear. He said he could smell something off. Hours later, medical officers were called to his cell. The official report said reaction to stress. But others, They weren't so sure. That's when the guards began checking every tray twice. Food handlers questioned. Supply routes reviewed. Someone, or something, had tampered with the meal rotation. And in a place like ADX where nothing happens by accident, that small, invisible act changed everything. Morning in Florence, Colorado, doesn't feel like morning. There's no sunrise in a concrete box, just the faint hum of ventilation and the heavy echo of doors unlocking in sequence. But today something's different. The guards move slower. The kitchen runs quiet. Word travels fast, even in solitary. Someone didn't eat yesterday. Someone got sick. The officers call it a medical observation. The inmates call it a warning. In a place where food is measured, counted, and recorded, a single untouched tray is enough to set off alarms. And in ADX, alarms are not taken lightly. Behind every security checkpoint, there's tension in the air. The food handlers, low-security inmates transferred from nearby facilities, are pulled aside and questioned one by one. Their gloves, utensils, and kitchen logs are examined. The prison operates like a machine, but now, every part of that machine is under suspicion. Inside Control Unit B, the officers open each cell slot with mechanical precision. Trays go in, cameras record, notes are taken. No one speaks. The inmates sense the change, the shift in energy. It's not the kind of fear you can see, it's the kind you can smell. A tattooed inmate named Rix, housed in isolation for over 7 years, sits staring at his tray. He's done time in multiple federal prisons before landing in Florence. He knows how the system works. You don't make noise unless you're ready for the consequences. But even Rix hesitates. He pokes at the oatmeal with his finger, sniffs it, then looks at the wall, at the faint rust-colored stain near the vent where someone once scratched a message. That's how word spreads here, through vents, through coded knocks, through small acts that mean everything. 2 knocks for yes, 1 for no. A piece of bread left by the door means something's wrong. By noon, half the inmates in the South Wing have refused their trays. It's not an organized protest, it's instinct. They don't trust the food. They don't trust the system. They trust each other, and even that is rare. In the control room, officers watch the cameras. They're refusing to eat, one says. The supervisor, a veteran named Daniels, doesn't blink. Then they'll go on report, he replies, his tone flat, procedural. But he knows what this means. In ADX, when inmates stop eating, they're not just hungry, they're angry. The warden calls for an internal review. Every meal batch is tested, every log compared. Officially, nothing's wrong. But unofficially, rumors spread faster than paperwork. Someone whispers about contamination. Another claims it's punishment. The truth? No one outside that kitchen knows. That evening, the medical team checks the inmate from cell B214, the one who first refused to eat. He's conscious but weak. He mutters that the tray smelled wrong. They log it as stress reaction again. But his eyes tell another story, tired, suspicious, hollow. The investigation deepens. Food handlers are rotated out. Guards are reassigned. Meals are delayed. And in a place where routine is everything, any delay feels like chaos. Down in the kitchen, the air smells of bleach and metal. The new team moves cautiously, under the unblinking eye of security cameras. Every movement is logged. Even the bread is sliced with plastic tools. Yet the paranoia doesn't fade, it grows. Rix, from his cell, starts writing on toilet paper with a piece of pencil lead he's hidden for months. He writes names, times, tray numbers, his own kind of investigation. He's been in enough prisons to know that when things don't add up, someone's covering something. At 7 p.m., the last meal of the day goes out. Rice, beans, and cornbread. Standard issue. But before midnight, 3 inmates call for medical assistance. Same symptoms: nausea, dizziness, trembling. All isolated, all from the same corridor. The next morning, federal inspectors arrive. They don't wear uniforms, just suits, clipboards, and the kind of expression that says they're not here to talk. They interview staff, review footage, and demand access to the kitchen logs. Everything appears in order. The water's clean, the supplies sealed. Yet the timing doesn't make sense. One guard, speaking off record, says quietly, "It's not the food. It's the fear." Inside the cells, fear does what hunger can't. It spreads like wildfire. Some inmates pray. Others lash out. One slams his tray against the door until the metal bends. Another flushes his food down the toilet without a word. By the end of the week, the administration issues a formal statement. No contamination detected. Meals safe for consumption. But the inmates don't buy it. ADX has never been about what's said, it's about what's felt. And right now the air feels poisoned. For the staff, the investigation is a headache. For the inmates, it's survival. Every bite is a gamble. Every smell a signal. Then, late one night, a young corrections officer named Harris reviews surveillance footage from the kitchen. At 3:42 a.m., he freezes the frame. There, in the corner of the screen, a shadow moves behind the food storage shelf. The camera doesn't catch a face, but it catches a hand. A tattooed hand not wearing a glove. Harris plays it again closer. The hand reaches toward one of the sealed supply boxes, pauses, then disappears. He reports it immediately. By morning, the kitchen is locked down again and every inmate involved is questioned. But when they check the box the hand reached for, it's empty. The label's been peeled off. No record of what was inside. The warden's order is clear. Isolate everyone, shut down the kitchen, and restore order. Meals are replaced with emergency rations. Sealed packs, no preparation needed. Cold, tasteless, safe. But the damage is already done. Trust has collapsed. Inside his cell, Ricks listens to the hallway, footsteps, metal doors, distant voices. He doesn't know what was in that tray or who tampered with it. All he knows is that for the first time in years the officers look nervous too. And when guards start showing fear inside ADX, it means something much bigger is happening. The investigation began quietly. No alarms, no lockdowns, just a slow tightening of control. Every tray that entered the ADX kitchen was logged, photographed, and tagged. Every inmate assigned to food service duty was questioned, their movements retraced, their words recorded. Behind those walls, even silence carried meaning. Lieutenant Harris, a veteran officer with 20 years inside Florence, led the internal review. He'd seen riots, stabbings, and suicide attempts, but this was different. Food was sacred in prison. It was the only thing that arrived 3 times a day without negotiation. If it was poisoned, contaminated, or even tampered with, it wasn't just a breach of rules, it was war. By the 3rd day, tension pulsed through the corridors. Inmates whispered through vents and pipes, spreading rumors faster than the guards could stamp them out. Some said a kitchen worker had slipped something into the trays to target a rival gang. Others believed it was a protest, a way to get the administration's attention. But nobody knew the truth. Not yet. Ricks, the tattooed inmate who had first refused his meal, was called for questioning. He sat across from 2 investigators in a small interview room, wrists cuffed to the metal table. His voice was calm, almost detached. I didn't touch that tray because I knew something was wrong. You can smell it, that chemical tang. It's not normal. Someone's playing with the food. Harris exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Klein. The kitchen logs showed nothing unusual. But a new security guard, Torres, had recently joined the kitchen shift, transferred from another facility. His file looked clean, almost too clean. Meanwhile, the prison medical unit reported 6 inmates complaining of nausea and dizziness over the past week. None were severe, but the timing matched the meals served from the same batch. The pattern was impossible to ignore. That night, surveillance footage was re-examined frame by frame. At 3:14 a.m., under the dull hum of fluorescent lights, Torres was seen opening a storage shelf not assigned to his duties. He removed a sealed container, hesitated, and then tucked something small into his sleeve before walking off-screen. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to start a lockdown. By sunrise, every kitchen worker was in cuffs. The air inside ADX grew heavier, more suffocating. Food service was halted. Emergency rations were distributed cell to cell. Inmates banged on their steel doors, shouting questions that would never be answered. And in the silence between those echoes, one truth became clear. Someone inside the system had crossed the line. When Torres was brought in, his hands shook. "You don't understand," he said. "They made me do it." But he refused to say who they were. The warden, known for his cold precision, leaned forward across the interrogation table. "You're going to tell us, or you're going to vanish into solitary so deep they'll forget your name." That was the breaking point. Torres whispered a name, one that didn't belong to an inmate but a supplier. The shipments of dry food, he said, had been coming from a private contractor with loose oversight. Small packets were being swapped, substances added to keep inmates quiet. A mix of sedatives and tranquilizers, undetectable in small doses, slipped into the food rotation. It wasn't sabotage. It was control. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. For years, staff had suspected something strange. Inmates lethargic at odd hours, too subdued after meals, but no one could prove it. Now they had a name, and the chain led beyond the razor wire. The Bureau of Prisons moved in fast. Agents arrived with sealed warrants, seizing supply records and interviewing staff. Within days, several private contractors were suspended pending investigation. But inside ADX, nothing really changed. The inmates still ate from the same trays. The guards still watched through the same cameras. The truth, as always, was absorbed into the silence. Rix was returned to his cell. He didn't celebrate or gloat. He just stared at the tray that arrived that morning, identical to every other. He picked it up slowly, sniffed it and set it back down. "You can change the cooks," he muttered, "but not the kitchen." The investigation ended quietly. No public reports, no press release. The food supplier was replaced, the kitchen sanitized and staff retrained. But inside those concrete walls, trust was gone. Every bite of food was now a gamble between hunger and fear. Weeks later, Harris stood on the surveillance deck overlooking D Block. Rows of inmates sat in their cells, each eating alone, eyes fixed on nothing. It was calm again, too calm. He turned to leave, but something caught his eye. On the screen showing Rick's cell, a small message had been etched into the metal wall beside his bed. "The food is the control." Harris stared for a long time. Then he turned off the monitor. Outside, the desert wind howled around the Supermax's towers, the sound of freedom carried just out of reach. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe because the walls of ADX still have secrets, and some of them are starting to leak out.